Hello and welcome to Behind the Star, a podcast about the Orange County Sheriff's Office, Central Florida's largest law enforcement agency. From forensics to dispatch to the deputies on patrol, we talk to the brave men and women that protect our community. I'm your host, Charles King, and today I'm here with some guys from the Marine Unit, Master Deputy Nick Mann and Deputy Doug Kimberlin. Guys, thanks for joining me here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm pretty new at the Sheriff's Office, and I really didn't know much about the Marine Unit. I still don't. It's part of the reason you're here today is to educate me and all the listeners. But let's just start simply. Why does the Orange County Sheriff's Office have a Marine Unit?
Orange County's got over 600 bodies of water within its jurisdictional boundaries. Not every one of those is completely accessible to the public, but a good majority of them are. You got major waterways that people go recreate and hang out on and whatnot, like the Conway Chain, the Butler Chain, Lake Pickett, Johns Lake, and you got St. John's River that's running up and down that. People go out there, they want to have fun, they want to joyride and just have a good time on their weekend and whatnot, but still need presence out there to ensure that the public is boating safely, I guess is the easiest way to put it and whatnot. And then the unfortunate circumstances that something goes wrong, we need some sort of response to that, whether it's a missing boater or a drowning, crash, anything else like that.
I'm curious to jump into some of those examples with you guys as we go on here, but let's talk about what makes up the unit, how many of you guys are on it, and what kind of equipment and boats do you guys have?
Our unit is made up right now of 6 people. So we have
Slotted for 7, but we got 6
we
currently.
have 2 supervisors. We do an A-B rotation, so we got 3 guys on A side and 2 on B side, but we pretty much have coverage every day of the week. The boats, like the equipment we have, how many boats we have?
I think at the moment, between us and Ag, there's about 13 vessels that the agency currently has. We have 3 jet skis, we've got a Ranger, we've got a Pathfinder, we've got 2 yellow fins, we've got a pontoon boat that's primarily the sonaring vessel, we've got the Edgewater, then Ag's got a couple airboats, we've got a river boat, we've got a John boat, there's even some kayaks sitting somewhere, but those are few and far between that we'd actually need to touch those.
Well, you mentioned how many waterways there are, and then hearing talk about the unit size, that's a lot of area to cover.
When everyone asks about the Marine Unit, the easiest way to kind of describe it is an over-exaggeration, but it's really everything all-encompassing that has to do with marine or vessels or whatnot, we take care of. If there's a problem and we're out on the water, you're going to have to be the on-call fleet because nobody's coming to get you. If there's an unfortunate death, we're going to be acting as homicide for it. We do those actual investigations in tandem with homicide. If there's a boat crash, we're kind of like FHP. If there's, like a nav board meeting or whatnot, we're acting as kind of crime prevention that usually goes out to all those things. If there's a school that wants us to come out, we're community relations. If there's pretty much anything that goes on that has to do with a boat, there's really no one else to call but us, because everyone else is just a little bit too far displaced, and they can speak about that particular aspect, but they don't know about it from ours.
I'm curious to dive into a lot of that as we go on, get into some of the things you mentioned there in some detail. But before we do that, it is Memorial Day weekend. And is this the busiest weekend on the water?
This is the kickoff to the boating season for the year.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pent-up energy that people have because they've been stuck in home, throughout the winter, get their boats ready for the summer. This is really the first weekend that people can kind of go, weather should be nice, be out in the sun, get some drinks and have a good time. But
it'd be a big ramp up for you guys, though.
It'll be a big holiday for us for sure.
One of the nice things about the unit is the hours are kind of flexible, but it's definitely a later work time frame and whatnot because it's out there when people are out there.
Yeah.
So outside of the obvious, there's a lot more boats on the water. There's, like you said, a lot of pent-up energy from people getting excited to get out on the water for the first big, long weekend. There's probably more partying, more drinking than normal.
Oh, yeah.
That's what makes it a little wilder.
Being out on the water is kind of like the Wild West. There are rules, there are regulations, there are laws, there are things that you got to do to abide by those and make sure that everyone is having a fun, safe time out there to enjoy and relax and whatnot. But Yeah, when you start mixing alcohol in boats, things can go sideways real quick.
What are some of the things you anticipate this weekend, just based on prior experience, that you guys are going to have to deal with?
Basically, we look for on a holiday weekend is like mostly safety related things. So you make sure that people riding jet skis have their properly fitting life jackets, that everything's buttoned up, they have their lanyards on. Make sure that like young children especially, have their life jackets on in boats that are moving. Make sure that like throughout the canals, people are not speeding. And then obviously as the day wears on, we're more concerned about people who've had too much to drink and maybe aren't operating safely. Trying to make sure, we're not trying to ruin people's day, but we also want people to be safe and not hurt anyone else or themselves.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest issue that I always see, I think that anyone sees, not just me, a little pretentious of me to say, is operator inexperience. That's the biggest issue that really plagues everyone. You got people that'll get out there on the boat and maybe they're only out there a couple times a year, 3-4 times, or they're just weekend warriors.
That probably describes pretty much everybody. I'm like at 90+% of everyone.
Oh yeah. So you got those people that'll go out there and they think they know how to operate their boat, but realistically they know how to operate it when there's no one else around and it's just flat water.
Yeah.
And that's just about it. Anyone can go out there and push the throttle forward and, hey, I'm a boater. No, that's not really the time. You're just going through the open field. But when you get into those situations, like Doug mentioned, of going through the canals where you've got, no wake zones and you've got multiple vessels passing, you've got sailboats that'll go out there, skiers that are on the back of the vessels and whatnot, that creates a whole different dynamic. And for that person, the weekend warrior that just takes it out, goes across the big open vast area and then settles up at the sandbar for a couple hours and then goes back to the boat ramp, they know nothing about that realm. And like Doug had mentioned, you mix in some alcohol with that.
Yeah.
You get the heat going throughout the day, like this weekend's supposed to be pretty good. Dehydration starts to set in, start mixing alcohol and not enough water.
People make mistakes.
It's a recipe for disaster.
You think about being on the road, everyone comes up with their family has a car. Everyone takes turns learning how to use a car. They're taught in the parking lot by their parents or something. And then, you got to go through the driver's ed courses and all the tests to get a license. And this just isn't the case for operating a boat. And then you consider like a good percentage of people that are on the lake are drinking.
I mean, it really just depends. There are plenty of people that go out there and they want nothing to do with alcohol while they're out there, and I applaud them.
But compared to the number of drivers on the road that are drinking,
that ratio is vastly different.
Yeah.
Vastly different, because when you're on the water, it is not illegal to drink while operating a vessel. You can have open containers. You can do all that type of stuff. The difference is you can't do that in a car. On the water, you can drink, but you can't drink to the point where your normal faculties are impaired. Once you get to that point, that's something entirely different. So you've got the responsible people that'll go out there and they may have 1 or 2 beers in a 6-hour period. And then you got the usually younger youths that'll want to party and see how many shots they can take, and then they don't take the time to find a designated driver to get them back there. And
oh man, who's going to drive back?
Yeah, everyone's been drinking.
One of the things that's really interesting to me, the difference between operating a car and a boat when you've been drinking, is a field sobriety test. In a car, you pull it over, you gotta walk a line, touch your nose, all the things that I imagine that you have to do, breathalyzer. But on a boat that's rocking, how do you do a field sobriety test?
That's a whole different adventure in and of itself.
We get sent to a class by FWC that they have it kind of down to a science for us. They call it like a seated battery test. So it's almost the same. They have their own, obviously you're not walking a line, but they have different exercises. They want to test your coordination and they want to test your ability to remember things.
There's a different set of kind of rules, but laws that you got to follow from our end of actually administering those field sobriety tests and whatnot. On the road, you're stationary. There's a whole way that you can go about doing those things to divide up what different tasks you got to do and everything. On the boat, you're rocking the whole day. And if you're out there for 8-9 hours, you're used to rocking. You can't really take somebody off a boat, put them on the side of the road, and expect them to be able to go through that as easily as if they were just driving a car. So that seated battery is just designed to acquiesce and accommodate for those differences of being on a boat that's rocking, all those equilibriums and everything that you got to take into account.
Is the blood alcohol level the same for a boat as it is in a car?
Yeah. There are differences of what exactly the penalties are. Some of them are the same. Some of them are different, but that's a whole different story and whatnot. But it's still a 0.08. Unless you're under the age of 21, then you have a 0.02 violation. If you're under 21, we have a little, you could call it a breathalyzer is what most people would think of it like. It's not an actual breathalyzer in that sense, but it's just to determine your blood alcohol content through your breath and everything. So breath alcohol content, I think that would technically be called, right? And if you're over 0.02, that's a violation in of itself. And we get that a lot, especially Memorial Day weekend. You got a lot of kids that'll come out and whatnot, and really the rest of them, Memorial, Labor, July 4th.
Yeah.
Throughout the summer, you got a lot of underage people that make less than wise decisions at times.
So from your experience, stories you can share anyways, you have Memorial Day memories of things that got a little crazy on the waterways?
Yeah, last Memorial Day 2022, I guess. Everything's fine. People are drinking. It is on Lake Butler. It's a pretty popular hangout area. Towards the end of the evening, a lot of boats are clearing out, trying to go to the ramp. And I noticed a jet ski with two men starting to leave. I didn't really see their life jacket. Like, I see that they had life jackets on from behind, but you could tell that they've been drinking all day. They weren't really stable. And I decided to follow them. Well, I come around a bend. I see the jet ski was flipped already. This was 30 seconds after I saw him leave. And one of the gentlemen gets back on. The second one, his life jacket was like over his head, so it wasn't buttoned up. So this is something that we look for a lot. Their life jackets to be zipped and buttoned and
got to be properly worn.
Properly fitted, just for this exact scenario. So life jacket's kind of going over his head. I speed up to try to get to him. The guy's definitely had too much alcohol. I tried to grab his hand, and he was kind of freaking out. Didn't know where he was at. I think he had like a big adrenaline dump, and finally, I pull him up onto the boat. He's unconscious. He started throwing up and convulsing. So we get him to the ramp, and the ambulance takes him to the hospital. But I think there's a good example of if we're not there or just happen to be in the right place at the right time, like could potentially be fatal. Give another 30 seconds or so, because the guy couldn't swim. The life jacket wasn't doing anything, and he was 2 or 3 times the size of his buddy on the jet ski. And he was intoxicated. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say that. I guess I didn't give him I didn't get his screening, but I'm just gonna guess that was what had happened all day. So that's the kind of things that we're looking for, hoping that we can avoid situations like that this weekend and the rest of the summer at least.
So when you're out on the water, I mean, this weekend, a lot of what you'll do is check and make sure that people have all the right safety requirements and things like that?
Yeah, probably the vast majority of what we're doing, if there's not a particular task at hand or mission that we're trying to accomplish or whatnot, is just as a general rule, we're a little bit more on the education versus enforcement. That's just generally throughout the year. However, that kind of switches and reverses when you start to go into the summer months like Memorial Day weekend, whatnot. We're more enforcement heavy. If there's a safety violation as far as what you have to have on the vessel or your actions as an operator of that vessel, you're more likely to get a ticket and or be arrested depending on what the actual
What's the most
case
common
was.
violation?
Well,
Not
probably
enough
the
life
most
vest?
Yeah, improperly worn life vests. That one's pretty much a guaranteed ticket. A vessel is considered a dangerous instrumentality because it is considered that. Florida state statute has adopted the U.S. Coast Guard rules and regulations for that as far as what safety equipment is required on the vessel. The first and foremost being properly fitting life jackets for everyone that is on that vessel. So if you've got a pontoon boat with 9 people, you need to have 9 properly fitted life jackets.
Which probably means you got to have 30. I mean, because if you have different people getting on the boat every weekend, you have to have a different size for every possible person.
Yeah.
Yep, that happens a lot because you'll have people that go, hey, I've got 15 life jackets on here. I can take 15 people. Well, maybe. First off, you got to make sure to adhere to what the safety requirements of the vessel are, which those are posted on the inside. It might be 7 people. So you'll get that a lot, too, of pontoon boats with 30 people on it. Like, that is not rated for 30 people. That is exceeding the weight and capacity of that vessel. But they'll be like, hey, I've got so many life jackets. Great, we got this amount of people. Well, yeah, but they're not all the same person. You've got young kids, they need a different size life jacket. You've got people of larger stature, they need a different size life jacket. So, like the guy that Doug pulled out, his was proper, but the problem was it wasn't fitted. He didn't actually have it zipped up and buckled up, so when he went under the water, it just went straight over his head. Well, you got to have it properly worn as well. So that's probably one of the biggest things, and then just careless and reckless operation, which goes back to operator and experience. You got people that want to jump the wakes, but they're doing it 5 feet behind another vessel. Well, that's how people get killed. When you bring this to people's attention, I'm sure they're excited to hear from you and be educated. Yeah, it's a different. It's not the same as pulling somebody over on the road. It's a very different interaction because you got a $150,000 boat that you're trying to put right up next to their $300,000 boat without scratching, without dinging, without causing damage and liability to the agency and whatnot. And you do that, and they're getting worried about, hey, are you going to damage my boat and everything? But then also, why are you stopping me? I'm out here just trying to have a fun time. Like, I didn't realize there was any rules. Yeah. Well, there are. You got to pay attention to them.
And I think that people, you said they're not happy to see us on the lake or get stopped by us, but I feel like we get a pretty good response when if we say, well, you're going fast through a no-wake zone, you don't have a fire extinguisher, you're missing a life jacket, and your registration is expired, like, maybe you're getting one for the safety violation, right? But when you put it to like, hey, look, there's all these rules that you're not following, like, I think they're at least being like, okay, I get it. Like, you're educating me, and I get a slap on the wrist for one of them.
That education versus enforcement, you get 5 things wrong, you're only getting a ticket for one.
And it's probably the safety.
Pretty much always the safety one. But also, hey, at least we had a conversation so you know what not to do next time.
And I think that helps too, because then we see the same people out there all the time, and a lot of people end up you have another communication with them later on, another interaction, and a lot of people get their stuff fixed. Like, you'll see them and they'll show you, hey, look, I got everything, cool, and it's like, cool, man, thanks, appreciate it. Like, and then I think that builds a relationship on the lakes that we see so many of the same people, and if you come in it trying to educate and be cool with people, hopefully they'll remember the interaction and help their friends that are new boat owners or new their first time on the lake or their first year on the lake. I've had that experience with people before.
That's probably more common than not. When you're out on the same lakes in the same places,
same people,
year after year, you get to know people on first name basis, and you don't even necessarily have to be anywhere near them, but because you already have a relationship and rapport built with them, they'll be out there and they'll see their buddy that may be doing something dumb, and they'll be like, hey, Doug's out here, like, chill out. It's not the right way to go about things. You're either gonna get a ticket or you're gonna get somebody hurt.
Let's talk about the pros of the job, maybe pros and cons. I mean, it's a very different type of job than just road patrol of it. And just listening to you guys talk about it, and just see all the differences. What are some of the pros to being on the Marine unit? What are the best things about it?
Pros, you get to have a completely different side of police work. I mean, we're on the lake, we're dealing with people who are usually in a good mood. It's a cool atmosphere. You get a lot of variety to take a jet ski or a pontoon. We get to do some investigating, some vessel-related deaths. We get to be involved with other agencies and do big events, which is kind of cool. So we help in Tampa, Gasparilla, do a transport of the pirate ship there. We help with hurricane relief. We help with the dive team here. So I feel like every day you get like a different variety of things you get to do, and it keeps you pretty occupied.
Yeah, you get a nice mix of pretty much everything, because at least from a CID aspect. All the same warrants that they're writing, we're writing them. We're dealing with the thefts, the outboard thefts, the crashes, the deaths, the missing persons, all that type of stuff. So as far as a personal experience and training aspect, that's hard to come by. There's a lot of people will go into a particular CID spot and they get really good at that one thing and they're just stuck in that corner and they got to start looking for other ways to get that other experience. Probably the biggest things for me is the experience, the training, and the relationships that you build outside of it. The conferences that we go to, you meet innumerable amount of people in various different aspects, whether it be from insurance companies, fire departments, other police agencies from around the country that can all help with whatever investigations that you're going through. You build rapport with these people through like EPD and whatnot, through, hurricane relief and whatnot. We spent, I don't even know how many weeks after Hurricane Ian down there. The training opportunities alone, let alone what you actually get. Everyone in the unit's been, at least is currently or has been, a United States Coast Guard captain that is paid for by the agency. Because all that does is just, it's more training, more experience, more articulatable knowledge that you can then bring to whatever investigation you're going to or the trial on the other end of it. It's hard to get that in any other unit.
You mentioned one of the pros seems great being in a boat or a jet ski on the lake a lot of the time, but I don't want to call it a con. Let's call it challenges. I imagine that that could also work the other way sometimes. You're in the elements, it's raining, it's super hot.
Yeah, completely. It's we've been notorious throughout the years, like took me forever to get into the unit, but it was always hard to get a cross trainer and keep a cross trainer. Because a lot of cross trainers, they're getting with their supervisors or whatnot. They may be able to get 1 day a month, maybe 2 days a month. Maybe the next month they don't get that and whatnot. When it comes to us, basic marine enforcement, the first class that you got to really go through, and it's in-house, is 80 hours. So you're looking at potentially probably 8 days, if not more. That's going to take you close to a year to be able to get that basic thing down. Then you've got a PWC for the jet skis. That's another 8-hour course. Then you got airboat. That's 20 or 40 hours. I don't remember which one that one is. Then you got chainsaw school. You got all that stuff. And when you look at all that stuff, people come out and they look at it and they're like, oh, you get to be on a jet ski. You get to hang out on the boat and have fun. And it's like, well,
took a while to get there.
Yeah, it took a while to get there. But then once you do get there, when it's hot, it's hot. When it's cold, it's cold. Yeah. When it's raining, you're wet. You get to go to the sandbar, but you don't get to jump out and have a beer with everyone. And it's like, this is entirely different. So you'll have people that want to come out, and they want to come out during the weekday. Nothing's going on during the weekday.
In the days that everyone else, the weekends we talk about, like Memorial Day and all these holidays where everyone's having fun, those are you have to work weekends.
Yeah, that's the weekends.
It doesn't matter if it's A or B side. You're working it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter there's no vacation granted or anything. Unless something's happening.
That's your con. You're working it. Yeah, you're not going to barbecue with your family on that day.
Yeah, so I guess also the cons with that too. We are on call. We do have an on-call status and everything that we abide by and rotate through and everything. Nobody ever gets into a crash or goes missing at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's always 5, 6 o'clock at night when you're thinking about getting home, having dinner with the family and whatnot, or a hurricane comes through and it's like, sorry babe, gotta go. It's not fun for anyone in that aspect of that. So you could look at that as a con, but most of us we're all good with that stuff.
There's going to be long days. Memorial weekend, we're going to be out late, so that's cons, I guess, but we expect it, so I don't think any of us are mad about it. It's just comes with the weekend, comes with what we do.
You guys mentioned you talked about all of the different training that you had to do. I'm curious how you guys, short version, I guess, how you guys got into the Marine unit and how challenging it was to get in and what made you want to do it.
A long time ago, I joined the dive team here, and the Marine unit at the time worked real close with them, so for sonaring and diver safety and stuff. And I became friends with some of the guys, and I was like, hey, I have some boat experience, like maybe I can come ride along with you guys, and put in my time for probably 2 or 3 years just volunteering holiday weekends and taking that 80-hour course that Nick was talking about, this is not an easy unit to get into. So I was pretty fortunate that I cross-trained for probably 3 years, just lucky enough that someone retired at the right time for me to interview and get in. And I just was lucky that from my childhood and adult life outside of police work that I owned boats and had experience on lakes and know most of the lakes that we patrol I've been on personally like countless times. So
Seems like that's pretty important to the job.
yeah.
I think everyone that's in the unit has some sort of affinity towards a job. You know, you always hear people talk about, like, don't do what you love for the actual job because then you're going to come to hate it.
Is that true for you?
Not for me. I don't think anyone that's currently there has any sort of qualms with that whatsoever. Everyone, you know, unlike certain people like Doug, the rest of us may be like, I've been on Conway and Butler enough. I'm not taking my personal boat there, but yeah, everyone else is like, I'm going to go somewhere else and get some new scenery or whatnot. But yeah, the unit's one of those, you either got to die or retire for an opening to come up. And it took me 7 years just to get that.
One of the things that I've learned about the sheriff's office, I didn't necessarily realize before coming here, was that a lot of the people inside the agency bounce around in departments. They learn new skills. They move on to something else. Seems like once you're in the Marine unit, though, that feels like the rest of your career situation. You're not going anywhere because of how much it takes to get in and the specialty of it.
Yeah, I'd say how much it takes to get in the specialty, but then also just how diverse it is. Like I was saying before, you got so many different things you can kind of dip your toes into. We're putting GPSs on suspects' cars.
No reason to look elsewhere is what you're saying.
Yeah. You know, a lot of those other people will go into something and be like, oh, that's cool, but now I'm kind of interested in this. Ours is kind of hat of all trades.
We get kind of like what we said we like about the job is we get a boat or jet ski one day, you get some serious investigating during the week, you get trainings next week, you got, you know, we get a lot of...
Keeps it diversified and always something new.
Before we wrap it up, I have some questions for you, some rapid fire questions. So I'll throw them at you and then both of you answer, even if you have the same answer. All right. What is the best thing about being in the Marine unit? Start with you, Nick.
It's just the experience that you get being out on the various different type of boats and whatnot, the training that you get. People pay a lot of money to get what we get paid to do.
I'm going to copy Nick's answer. I like that we get a lot of diversity. We get to be on the water. We get to be in the sun. We get, you know, trainings. We get all that experience all in one spot.
What's your least favorite then, Doug? What's the thing that you least look forward to day to day?
Maybe the least favorite part, if I had to say something, was like summer weekends just get pretty busy. So if there's something you want to do, it's pretty hard to take time off. But other than that, like, it's expected. Like, we're still having a good time out on the water. We still enjoy it. I'm still new too. Maybe next year I'll have something more to say, but as of right now, it's pretty cool.
Again, like with the cross trainers, it takes a certain type of person that likes to come out and do this every day. So when you look at it, it's like, least I don't have a problem coming to work. Like, a lot of people don't like what they do, and like, no, I'm good with that. And like, we got another deployment. All right, guess we got to go. Okay, well then maybe that least is having to explain. Hey, honey, I can't. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Hold off on dinner.
Yeah, I get that. All right, Nick, what's the most common thing that people do wrong on the water?
Most common thing that they do wrong, probably just normal operation of the vessel and whatnot. A lot of people like to just go. They think the world is their oyster and they can go wherever they want, but there are rules and regulations. They call rules of the road that you have to abide by and whatnot. How you're supposed to pass each other when coming to, you know, intersecting one another, who has the right of way, who has all that type of stuff. Most people just think, no, I'm going. I got this. This is mine. Like, I had a guy in the canal the other day that he was just plowing through. Somebody else was waiting on the other end to go through, but there's only enough room for one vessel, and he comes over and he's pissed off that this other guy wouldn't get out of the way. And it's like, well, if you would have hit him, that would have been your fault. This isn't just your waterways. It's everyone's.
That's the most common thing. People don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, probably to go along with that, for me, people don't take a boater's education class, a boater safety class. So in that class, it explains the rules of the road and explains kind of basic knowledge of what you should have probably before you get on the lake. So if you were born in 88 or after, you have to have that. So it's very common. We see a lot of people, they do something wrong, and then when we go to investigate or pull them over, they don't have that card. And it's like, well, this is why you're probably doing it wrong. You weren't educated on it. That's a ticket for it right there. And that's something that we see all the time. And we try to tell them, like, look, it's a free class. So you're just wasting money by not doing that because you didn't know these things. You didn't know you were supposed to have these certain things on your boat for safety, a throwable life jacket, fire extinguisher, whatever. You didn't know that this sign meant slow down through this canal. People could save themselves a lot of heartache just by taking this free class that they have to do it anyway. And just because you were born before 1988 doesn't mean you have all this knowledge that you're a great boat operator anyway. Probably everyone should do it anyway. Like, it takes a couple hours, 3-4 hours, but you don't have to do it all in one shot. So it's a free program, free website online for people to go do that.
Are there any perks with that? Like, you get like your insurance rate lowered if you have that?
You don't get a ticket.
All right. Here's another question for you. If you could get across one thing to jet skiers, what would it be?
Put your life jacket on.
You're not impressing anyone by spinning around in that circle.
Going as fast as you can. No one is looking at you going, you're the cool guy.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like having the loud muffler going down the road. Nobody's like, wow, I need to get that guy's name. He's awesome.
All right, last one, and then we'll wrap it up. What's your most interesting boat ramp or boat dock story?
I couldn't narrow it down to one particular thing because there are entire YouTube channels that are devoted to just watching the dock and the, let's say, interesting way that people go about either loading or unloading, whether they've had a few to drink or are currently still drinking or way beyond that point. It's a nice place to end the night to just watch how ridiculous some people can get. Like, they'll just leave their vessel running and come up to the dock, step off. Meanwhile, the vessel still continued on somewhere else, or, a jet ski's now going off into the Netherland. And
one of the most interesting things, funny things about a dock story is when people decide to pull their jet ski with a Honda Civic or a sedan, and you pull up to the dock and someone's standing waist deep, and you think you see the roof of a car and a trailer when they backed up, and all of a sudden their brakes stop working and they're floating down the ramp. That usually happens every year. At least they're not meant to back jet skis in the water.
Whose responsibility is fixing that problem? You guys get caught, or?
So normally even though the car sinks with the trailer, it's not far down in there, and I think that probably the tow truck companies can charge a little bit extra if they get wet, so they probably go do that, only because it's right there. Our dive team is taking care of stuff like that, but that's not normally the case because it's sunk, but it's not very deep. It's right there on the ramp.
Those suck, but they are humorous to watch. It sucks for the person that's involved in it. Like,
so when does it ramp up for you guys? Friday or Saturday morning?
Really Saturday morning. You're going to have an increase. There's already been an increase just in motor traffic this week, but really kicks off Saturday.
And then 3 days of busyness for you guys.
Yeah, 3 days of busyness just ramped up, and then slow trickle through the rest of the summer.
Well, guys, thanks so much for joining me today. I learned quite a bit about the Marine unit. Thanks for educating me and answering all of my silly questions. So, Nick and Doug, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And thank you, the listener, for hanging with us today. I'll assume most of you listening are already subscribers to the podcast, but if you're not, you should be, so you know when a new episode comes out. And if you're a regular listener that wants to hear a podcast about something specific here at the agency, send me an email at charles.king@ocsofl.com. Enjoy your holiday weekend, everyone.